Somewhere in your head, two versions of you are arguing. One wants to send the email. The other keeps rewriting it. One wants to leave the house on time. The other needs 5 more minutes before anything feels right. Most people assume this means something is wrong with how you think, but that may not be what is really happening. The disagreement itself might be doing exactly what a neurodivergent brain is built to do. Executive function researcher Russell Barkley has spent his career studying how the brain manages competing instructions at once. In a neurotypical brain, one system tends to take charge quickly, quieting the others so a decision can be made. In many neurodivergent brains, that hierarchy is looser. Multiple systems stay active longer, each with a legitimate claim on what happens next. The part of you that wants order and the part of you that wants stimulation are not malfunctioning. They are both still running, still voting, long after most brains would have already picked a winner. This is why a simple decision, like what to eat or when to start a task, can feel like a small parliament rather than a single voice. You are not indecisive. You are outnumbered by your own competing processes. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman described the mind as two systems, one fast and intuitive, one slow and deliberate. For most people, the fast system usually wins by default, and the slow system only steps in occasionally. For a neurodivergent brain, that balance shifts. The slow, deliberate system frequently refuses to yield, cross-examining the fast one's instincts before allowing action. That cross-examination feels like friction. It is actually a form of vigilance, one that historically caught errors other brains missed entirely. There is a cost to this vigilance, though. Holding two active systems in tension takes energy that a single dominant system would not require. By the end of an ordinary day, that constant internal negotiation can leave you drained in a way that has nothing to do with how much you actually did. Therapist Richard Schwartz built an entire model of the mind around this idea. His internal family systems framework treats the psyche not as one unified self, but as a collection of distinct parts, each with its own goals, fears, and protective strategies. A part that pushes you toward achievement, a part that pulls you toward rest, a part that scans constantly for danger in a conversation that already ended. Schwartz's insight was not that these parts should be silenced, it was that they should be heard, because each one formed for a reason and is still trying to help, even when its methods clash with another part's methods.
Philosophy arrived at a similar conclusion centuries earlier through a different route. The idea of a single continuous self negotiating with itself echoes older questions about whether there is truly one you at all, or a shifting alliance of impulses that simply feels unified from the inside. Certain Buddhist traditions describe the self this way, not a fixed entity, but a process, assembled moment to moment out of competing mental events. Under that view, the argument in your head is not a flaw in an otherwise singular mind. It is what a mind looks like when examined closely enough, in anyone, but especially in a brain that resists collapsing its options quickly. For a neurodivergent brain, this internal negotiation shows up everywhere. In a conversation, one part is listening while another is rehearsing what to say next, and a third is monitoring your tone for mistakes. In a task, one part wants to finish, and another insists on redoing the first 3 minutes until it feels right. None of these parts is the true you fighting off the false ones. They are all you, disagreeing about method rather than goal. So what do you actually do with a mind built like this? Start by naming the parts instead of fighting them. When you notice hesitation, ask specifically what each side wants rather than labeling the whole moment as failure. The part that wants to redo the work is usually protecting you from a specific past consequence, not blocking you arbitrarily. Naming it turns a vague internal fog into a workable disagreement with two sides you can actually negotiate between. Second, build in a deciding mechanism ahead of time, before the argument starts. A short rule, a timer, a fixed number of drafts, anything that gives one part permission to act without needing every other part's full agreement first. This works because it does not try to silence the competing voices, it simply gives them a shared referee they agreed to in a calmer moment, which is far easier than negotiating in real time while already overwhelmed. Third, expect the negotiation to return. It is not a problem you solve once. It is closer to an ongoing relationship between the parts of your mind, one that gets easier to manage the more familiar you become with each voice's actual concern. The argument in your head was never proof that something in you is broken. It is what a mind sounds like when it refuses to shut any of its own reasoning down too early. Somewhere in your head, two versions of you are still arguing. That disagreement is not the mind failing to be one thing. It is the mind doing, in full view, what every mind does quietly, staying open to more than one answer for as long as it can.